starts with you, only you. A cosmic dance, the truth so true. From the ether to the earthly plane, all you seek, you can attain. The quantum flow, the light you hold, creates the story that will unfold. Every thought and step you make, the universe is yours to take. It starts with you, the mirror's hue, infinite skies reflecting you. From the void, you birth the light. Through the shadows, your soul takes flight. The winds will shift, its timeless bend. Every cycle begins again. Your energy builds, it flows, it streams, aligning rims, igniting your dream. Each vibration, each sacred sound, a universe moves resound. You are the spark, divine and true, illuminating. It's all you do. Just remember, it starts with you, the mirror's hue, infinite skies reflecting you. From the void, you birth the light. Through the shadows, your soul ignites. The path within, the path divine. Through space, your world aligns. Every rise, every fall, you're connected to it all. It starts with you, the quantum view, manifesting dreams like the morning dew. From the stillness, creation flows. Through the darkness, your spirit knows. It starts with you, only you. Through dimension, through the veil, the sacred truth, and you prevail. Now infinite, clear, and true. This road ahead, it's made for you. It all begins and ends with you. Even the chaos, through the flame, you rise anew, never the same. Every heartbeat, every sign weaves your essence, soaring high. The cosmos bends to your command. Creation blooms within your hand. It starts with you, only you, only you. It starts with you.
Welcome in the space, family. Happy Friday. I'm back for another Friday. Come in and hold space with me tonight. We're going to come in and unpack the topic of justice tonight. So come in and hold space with that tonight. Come in and hold space with me on a Friday night. So I'm going to get my disclosures on the way. I share my own experiences on my journey of healing. I'm a certified life coach, and my mission is simple: to restore the knowledge of self, rooted in balance, truth, justice, reciprocity, and divine knowing within me. The beautiful thing is you don't have to abandon everything that you've been taught to receive what's available, because access is already in you. Now, let me remind you of something very important, and I quote, "The works that you see me do, you can also do, and even greater works than these." And how is that? By gaining the power from within you. So while you're waiting on Jesus, limit your me time, because if you don't recognize your responsibility in this process, everything you do is useless. So if it don't apply, let it fly. If some apply and some don't, eat the meat and spit out the bones. If it all applies, eat it all and let's apply the knowledge. Come in the building on a Friday night and hold space with the topic. We are here for a short time, not a long time. But before we get into the meat of the topic, we have to set these intentions, right? So I invite you to stand in this space with me as we go on this journey of unfolding. I invite not just your body, but the energy that surrounds it, your history, your lineage, your inner child, and the parts of you that learn to survive quietly. Take a deep breath with me. And let it settle you. Not to escape it, but to come back to yourself. Tonight we set the intention to see clearly, with clarity, and move beyond what we were taught. We want to move beyond that into what we can recognize within ourselves. So we're setting intentions tonight to stop looking outside for validation, begin examining what lives inside. To be honest about our actions, our motives, and our intentions. And most importantly, to take responsibility for what is ours, to take accountability for that. Because tonight is not about blame. It's not finding somebody to point the finger at. It's about awareness. And in this moment, we recognize the parts of us that has never been touched or tampered with, and we return to ourselves. And that part of ourselves that recognizes that everything starts with me, and what's yours starts with you. And I say, and so it is. So come in, family, welcome into the space. Come in and hold space with me tonight while we unpack the topic of justice. Gotta get my music right, so give me a minute. I'm gonna give me some. Yeah, that's cool. So come in, welcome in, family. Happy Friday. For those of you that are new coming into the space, welcome in. For those of you that are say new on here, my name is Tyson Matawi, and I welcome you into the space where it starts with you, where there's no shame or blame or judgment. However, we do hold ourselves and one another accountable. But here in this space, we do things a lot different. So you'll see that it's not going to be the ordinary thing. It's not going to be your regular, schmegular thing that you get everywhere else. This ain't that. So as we share and I unpack tonight, if you want to share in the chat, feel free to do so. If you decide that you want to remain anonymous or you feel a little shy, send it to my inbox and I'll be sure to take a look so I can see what shows up in that space, and I can actually keep you anonymous and share what you're saying. Okay. So we're gonna get into it. Last time we was together, we unpacked the topic of peacebreaker. Not someone who created chaos, but someone who was willing to challenge what has been called peace. But what was really designed to suppress. We exposed how silence, avoidance, and performance have been mislabeled as peace. Welcome in, family. So if I'm being honest, what I'm doing right now is breaking the peace. Not real peace, at least not the way they gave it to you. The kind that you were told what not to do. Don't challenge, don't disrupt, just follow and keep everything looking right. That's the peace I'm breaking. And I'm okay with that. Because it wasn't peace to begin with. It wasn't that. So if I had to call it something, I wouldn't call it peace. I would call it silence. Silence that we learn, that we train, that was taught. It taught you to sit with things that never sat right with you. And we all know that silence is betrayal. We should know if we don't. And if you don't, we're going to get to know coming over here, holding space with Ty, that silence is betrayal. So let's be honest. What does silence look like, Ty? Knowing that something is off and not saying anything about it. Feeling something in your body, that uneasiness, that sinking in the pit of your stomach and overriding it. Seeing wrong and convincing yourself it's right. And all of that what it boils down to be is self-abandonment. And I know about self-abandonment. I am the master at self-abandonment, how to abandon self. I should do a teaching on that. But last time we was here, we unpacked those three things: peace, justice, and righteousness. And because they can't go and don't work separately, we have to look at them all. And tonight is the turn for justice. So let's break it down. We got to get to my favorite part before we get into the meat of the topic. The definitions. That's my favorite part because we get to explore the things that show up that are new. The word justice comes from the idea of what is just, what is right, what is fair. How about this? And this is Ty's spin on it. What is balance? So tonight, we're exploring the topic of justice because somewhere along the way, we were taught to see justice as something outside of us. We was looking at the courtrooms and the judges and the systems that show up and what we perceive as justice. But what if I told you justice starts from within you? What if I told you that everything that belongs to justice is you? That justice is not just external first, it's intrapsychic. It is an inner weighing because every time you move, you act, every time you decide, there is something in you that already knows your intentions. And that's the part nobody else can fully see, but you can. You're able to see what it looks like on the inside of you. This is why people say things like, only God can judge me. And I sat with that and I'm just like, but if that's external, Ty, how does that look like inside me? There's a lot of parts that we miss when we don't sit down and we don't understand for ourselves. It's not because judgment is somewhere, far away or some sky daddy, but because there's an awareness within you that knows the truth of what you're doing. The original system, justice was never about being punished. It was about balance. They spoke about the weighing of the heart. And I unpacked just a little bit of it and I touched on it just a little bit, but we're going to go deeper into that. But I do recognize, and I know, welcome in family, I recognize and I know that a light heart meant alignment and a heavy heart meant something was off. And if you really think about it, you don't need anyone to tell you when your heart is heavy, you feel it. Whether it's in the tension, that pull, that knowing, whether we know it or not, that's justice happening and unfolding. We just don't know how to recognize it because we were never taught. We were taught to press those down. Press those feelings down. Don't acknowledge your feelings, especially for boys. Don't operate in your feelings. Welcome in, family. Happy Friday. That justice is happening within you. And you didn't even know it. And that's what we are unpacking tonight. And even today, you see the symbol of the scale in those courtrooms. They put them up. But what we miss is the scale didn't start out there. And I wouldn't be tired unless I go back to the origin, where it started from. It started here. Because you are constantly weighing yourself. And the part we overlook, justice is not about what you do, it's about why you do it. When I think about weighing things inside ourselves or inside myself, there's science that backs it up. There's biblical text that back it up. So I have to go back to the origin where this information was taken and plagiarized from. But science actually shows that the body does something very similar to what I'm describing. Your brain and your body are always doing a self-check to ask, am I safe? Am I aligned? Or am I in conflict? Is something happening that makes me unsafe? And when you do something that matches what you believe is right, your body stays calm. And your nervous system is balanced. But when you do something that goes against what you know inside, your body reacts. And a lot of us aren't aware enough to notice. We're not aware enough to notice when these things are happening. And we have all of these things spilling out in our health, in our skin, in all the things. Your thoughts keep replaying what's happening over and over again. That's your brain and your nervous system trying to fix that imbalance that shows up in you. Thank you. Welcome in. Science calls this process homeostasis. It's your body trying its hardest to return itself to balance. We touched on it a little bit briefly last night, but I'm going to slow this thing down and take my time tonight so I can unpack what it actually looks like. Homeostasis is what regulates things like your body temperature, your heart, your stress hormones, and even your emotional states, the things that you don't have control over. Your nervous system is constantly trying to stabilize you without you even realizing it. But an important part is that homeostasis that Ty's unpacking, it doesn't judge whether the state you're in is healthy or unhealthy. So that lies an issue with that. It doesn't care whether it's healthy or unhealthy. It just cares that it's consistent. So it can be consistent in your mess. Welcome in, family. It can be consistent in your healthiness. It can be consistent in your toxicity, whatever it is. So if someone was living with a stressful or guilt or fear or chaos for a long time, all the things at the low vibration, if you've lived with that for a long enough time, the body begins to treat it as normal. And when something healthy shows up, like peace or stability or kindness, we get all in our feelings like, he too nice. This ain't what I'm used to. Because it feels unfamiliar and it's even uncomfortable. And it's not because it's wrong, but because the body is so used to something else. This is why you can push people away and calm relationships, and you can create conflict where it isn't any, or feel uneasy when things are finally stable. Your system isn't trying to sabotage. It's not trying to sabotage you. It's simply trying to return to a pattern it recognizes. And this is why awareness matters, because until you recognize the pattern, your system will keep returning to what's familiar, even if it's not what's best for you. So Ty, what happens when the worldview of something, let's say religion, for instance, and I'm gonna talk about religion in this space because that's my specialty. Welcome in, family. Thank you. That's my specialty, so I'm gonna stick to it. It teaches that there's only one perspective is valid. And being introduced to that system early, right and wrong, the mind begins to maintain that framework automatically because it feels stable and it feels safe. So even when something inside you question it, the system tries to restore that old belief, not because it's true, but because it's what your mind learned to keep in balance. And that's the experience, what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. This is why we're so conflicted internally, is because we're suffering with all this cognitive dissonance. So what is it, Ty? Cognitive dissonance is that tension between what you feel internally and what you believe you must accept externally. So turning the other cheek. When you tell somebody that, turn the other cheek, they'd be like, I don't know, God ain't through with me yet. That's what I'm talking about. When what you feel and what you believe, they have confliction between one another. So in response, you start to do many things, and I'm just going to name a few. You start to suppress. We just unpacked suppression a couple weeks ago, and what that looks like. And what happens after a long time of you suppressing, it turns into repression, and you start to numb things. So you're ignoring that inner doubt or those feelings to maintain belonging or a certainty. Not only that, we rationalize things. We explain in a way conflict between experience and belief. Then we have this dependence on this inner, this outward exterior authority. We rely on these leaders. We trust what they say. Or we take this text that was plagiarized and changed and turn every which way but loose to resolve inner uncertainty. Then what about the guilt or the shame loops? We start interpreting natural, emotions or thoughts as personal failure. And over time, that tension becomes constant and the mind starts to adapt. It starts the adapting process. So it gets used to that thing. And it becomes your new normal. That's the psychology of homeostasis. Stability maintained through coping mechanisms, rather than that true harmony that's in your nature. So family, your intentions carry weight. Ty used to tell everybody all the time, what do your intentions look like? Because it's not what you think that does the manifesting, it's the feeling. And that's why you can do the right thing for the wrong reason and it still feel off. And you can do something that nobody else understands, but know within yourself that you're aligned and you're content with it. So I'm going to say it loud for the people in the back. Justice is not just behavior. And what people realize, whether you realize it or not, we are all constantly justifying ourselves. Pay attention to what you do. Pay attention to how you make these ideas in your head about things. We are constantly justifying ourselves. We tell ourselves all these crazy stories. We explain our actions. We defend our choices. But the real question is, are you aligned with your own justifications? Do you believe the lie that you're telling yourself? No. I'll answer it for you. You don't believe them lies you're telling yourself. You've done it so much that you've gotten used to it. Because you can convince others on the outside looking in. But what you did, God says, I know you not. Topic tonight, justice. So when you're starting to ignore that inner doubt or feeling to maintain belonging or certainty, we rationalize those things. And that don't sit right with me. So as we talk about justice tonight, here's one way you can notice it inside yourself. And I want you to start paying attention to that moment when something just doesn't feel right. That feeling in your stomach, that tightness in your chest, that little voice in your mind that says something's not right. That's the moment the scale shows up. The justice scale. Something inside of you is weighing what happened. Now, if that feeling stays there long enough, people sometimes do other things. They do something else. They start making excuses. They tell themselves, it's okay. But even when you do that, that scale starts to tilt. Your body starts to put a pin in it and remembers. Your mind still thinks about it again and again, and your heart still feels the weight. And that's why justice begins inside of you. Because before anyone else judges what you did, something inside of you has already been measuring. There's a justification, but the deeper truth hasn't changed, because the one thing you cannot escape is yourself. You can run, but you can't hide from you. You can't. And that's the meaning behind the statement, I know you not. Not because the person didn't perform the behavior. He said, I know that you were out here healing in my name. I know that you were casting out. But because the alignment isn't there, because your heart is heavy, because the scale don't balance, you didn't take ownership of the things, of that internal thing that shows up on the inside of you. I can't even recognize who you have become, Ty. So when we talk about justice tonight, we're not just talking about that YT, what the YT people gave you. We're not doing that. That's not what we own. We're talking about someone else declaring what you are. We're talking about whether you recognize yourself. Because before anything else weighs you, you got a front row seat to your own event. You're the star in your own movie, and you cannot escape that, because justice starts within. So before we talk about what's right in the world, I had to be honest about what's right within myself. Because through my inner experience, it dictates my outer experience. And let me say something that I struggle with. I had a hard time recognizing what's right within what's right within myself looked like. I had trouble. I have to be transparent about it. I had a lot of trouble recognizing what was right within myself. And I understand why. When you've been told and taught your whole life that something is wrong with you, think about that for a moment. Your whole life you've been told something is wrong with you. And if that child, and I'm saying child because I'm referring to me and I'm referring to you, if a child grows up hearing that they're born flawed, that you're just born this flawed person, how can you recognize what's right within yourself? They tell you all the things. You're born sinful. You can't trust your own nature. What do you think that does to anybody? To you. You believe what you're told. I used to hear a coach say it all the time. If you say you can't, you can't. Because after you keep saying it continuously, it starts to sink in. After you start saying those things, even if you don't say it out loud, you say it in your mind, I'm not good enough. You start to believe that, and you start to attract those things that are in that likeness. They don't question it. They absorb it. You absorb that information. So if I tell you a child they are broken, we grow up trying to fix ourselves. And when you become an adult, you're second guessing your thoughts. And you're supposed to be putting away those childish things. That's what your text tells you. Put away those childish things, but we don't. So doubting your instincts looks outside of yourself for all the things because you can't trust what's inside. That's supposed to, it's supposed to be put away. With you aligning with that peace, justice, and righteousness. But you can't because we're so busy trying to hold on to the narrative of that white supremacy, the definitions and the ideas and the narratives that they gave us. All of those narratives of the white supremacy system. And that's how we end up losing or spending our whole lives in this cycle. Over and over again, doing the same thing, expecting different results. That narrative was not designed for you to be prosperous. It was not designed for you to win. It was not designed for you to access your Christ or to get to the highest version of yourself. It was not designed to do that. It was designed to keep you low vibrational, just like they are. You spend your whole life trying to prove that you're good enough. And the recipe that you were given to prove that you were is out of alignment. Trying to earn something that we were told that we didn't have. But what if I told you something inside of you has always known? That's why when you do something that goes against yourself, you feel it. You don't need a judge to tell you. You don't need nobody in a courtroom to tell you. You just feel the weight of it. That heaviness, that quiet voice in your mind that keeps revisiting what happened over and over again. That's the scale. And when I say scale, I'm not just speaking symbolically. The justice scale is what I'm talking about tonight. That's not the one you see in the courthouse today. That system is against you. You would never. Originally, that scale was primarily it wasn't about being punished in court. That's probably the first place you've seen it, but that's not where it originated from. It represents the belief that a person's life would naturally reveal its balance. Your heart, your character, your intentions was the measure. In that sense, the symbol pointed towards justice as alignment with truth rather than just a simple legal verdict, something that they passed down. And in its true sense, family, something happens in your body when that moment shows up. Welcome in, family. Your nervous system is constantly evaluating your actions. Your brain is always asking questions. Why? Why? Just like the babies when they were babes. Why, mama? Go to bed. Why? Eat your food. Why? So when they tell you don't question God, it's impossible. That's a fact. It is impossible for you to ask, for you not to ask questions, even though your mouth may not say it, but you know. Because it's gonna happen, period. This is why when your loved ones transition, family, you have to force yourself with the indoctrination that was given to you not to ask questions of why did this happen? He was too young. Why? Sis, it's natural. Your body will ask, am I in alignment or am I in conflict while I'm going through this thing? Your body already senses that something is out of balance here and I need to be asking questions of what's showing up, what's happening here. And what you do lines up with what you know and what is intended. Your body stays regulated. You feel calm and it starts to settle. That answer that you give yourself it's in God's timing. That helps you settle. It calms you, even though it's not true. And there's no internal argument inside you. But when you do something that goes against you, your body is going to react and your nervous system is activated. That's your nature. And your mind keeps revisiting that. Your thoughts keep circling back to that day over and over again. Y'all do it all the time. We're going to go do a balloon release and pay homage. That's because your mind, there's an imbalance there that your mind is trying to wrap around and it's trying to understand, like it's trying to revisit this thing. This doesn't happen randomly. That's your system trying to restore the balance. Topic tonight is justice. And that's exactly what Ma'at gives us. The weighing of your heart. A light heart means alignment. A heavy heart means something inside of you was unresolved. This is why it gives you trouble don't last always. Because your body will find a way. So the scale isn't just something, it's just not some ancient image. It's your experience. You experience that every day. Think about the last time you said something you didn't really mean. Think about it. Think about a time when you stayed silent when something felt wrong or did something just to keep the peace. Even if nobody else noticed, you felt it. That little voice, that uncomfortable replaying in your mind, that thing that says in the back of your head, I should have slapped her. That's what I'm talking about. Whatever that voice was to you, you can put your own name on it. That's the scale that's showing up in real time. That's what I'm talking about that justice scale that lies within you. Don't nobody else have control over that. That's you. Your body keeps the score. When I unpack that, I think about how your text illustrates that very thing. I don't want that. Welcome in, family. Trying to get my music together. If we start paying attention, how it shows up in the human experience, how it shows up in our lives is basically what I'm saying. We start paying attention to that. And because we may not know what that looks like, I'm not going to take it for granted that we do. So we're going to unpack it together. How about that? I give myself permission to do that tonight. Welcome in, family. Happy Friday. As I unpack the story that I'm about to give us, the goal here is only to illustrate a point. I'm not saying this as if it really happened, but I'm doing this to show us the human experience, the human behavior. That's what I'm doing tonight. So let me give it to you. I remember the story, the allegory of King David, how he was smitten with Bathsheba. She must have been bad because they said in the text it said he took her. And when the text talk about take her, we're not no kids in here. In layman's term, today we would say he took her down. I can even one could even say he took her through there. Ty, you so silly. But that's what he did. Don't get mad at me. I'm just the messenger. I'm just telling you what your text say. So he took her through there, even though she was married. And when the thing started to unravel, he arranged to send Uriah, which was her husband, into battle because he wanted him gone. He wanted him dead, and nobody confronted him. There was no courtroom. There was no judge. There was no stoning like they do with the adulterers in the text. You know what? I see why y'all like to move the goalposts, because let me tell y'all act just like y'all daddy. Y'all do. God got favorites and favors too. He got favors and things. I see you, but anyway. I don't know why I can't get my right music. I ain't gonna worry about it. But anyway, everything looked outside was quiet. But there was a prophet named Nathan. He came to him and he said, I'm going to tell you a story, brother. Come here, let me share this story with you. And he laid the story out. He told him the story. He said, there was two men. One of the men was a rich man, and he had many sheep. The other man was a poor man, and he only had one lamb. And he loved this lamb with all his might, all his soul, all his everything. But this rich man came along and took the poor man's lamb for himself. Not for no reason, just because he wanted to. And when David heard that, he got angry. And he immediately said, no. Whoever would do this deserves a punishment. He said that man deserves justice. And then Nathan says something to him that stopped him straight in his track. He said something that changed everything in him. He said, you're the man, David. I'm talking about you. And in that moment, the justice scale showed up. Not on the outside of David, but in the inside. How is it that I'm so quick to condemn someone else and I'm doing the same shit? I know the text says, I think it says something about, how does it say it? You look at the speck in your brother's eye, but you won't remove the plank in yours. Because as Nathan was telling the story, it resonated with him and he already knew. That's why the story hit him so hard. He said, I've sinned. That's the scale. That's the weighing. Nobody had to convince him. Nobody had to force them. Something inside him already knew the truth. And that's the point. Justice begins when someone, it doesn't have to be someone accusing you. Justice begins the moment the truth inside, has to surface. Because before the world gets an opportunity to judge you, your own heart has already weighed what you did. And I know what that's like, to be conflicted in my spirit because I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know what that's like, family. We should know what that's like. What does that look like today, Ty? Because we might not be kings sending people into battle, but we do the same shit in our lives. So you ask, what does it look like? Sometimes it looks like you did something wrong and maybe you lied about it. Maybe you betrayed somebody's trust. Maybe you took advantage of a situation, but on the outside, everything still looks fine. No one confronted you. No one is calling you out. Life just keeps life and it keeps moving. So you tell yourself it's handled. I'm justified. I got a reason for doing the things that I do. You say it's not that serious. Why are you taking this so hard? They'll get over it. That's just how, that's how shit happens. But then something happens and you hear a story You see someone else doing the same thing, or someone explains a situation that sounds just like yours, and suddenly something inside you reacts. You get uncomfortable. You feel exposed. Somebody do your mama like that, and you lose it. We always used to say, I could talk about my sister, but nobody else can. It's cool when you do it, but it's a problem when they do it. Topic tonight, justice. We need to be looking at the scale of justice and weighing these things that align that are misaligned with our integrity, that is misaligned with how we show up, our morals, our values. Because that is no different than the moment Nathan says, you're the man, sis, you're the woman, brother, you are him. It's you. Don't wait till somebody accuses you of something. Something inside you recognize the truth. That's the scale showing up right there. And this happens all the time. You can explain something to other people, but you can't lie to yourself. At some point, the truth catches up with you. That's what they say. You can't hide from God. They used to tell us that all the time. And I know because I. At some point, we have to stand on business. We have to start standing on business in this space, family. Now, when the world judges you, but when you become honest enough with yourself to recognize the weight of what you've done, but what happens when you never look within, Ty? What happens in the space when I don't never look at myself? And I'm glad you asked that. When everything is external, your answers have to come from somewhere else. And anything will do. You'll take any excuse. It was the pastor. I got it from the book, a family member, a judge, whoever. Anything will do. And that makes sense when I hear it. Only God can judge me. And we're not talking about out there. We're talking about when you recognize who you are. But when you look out there, and I'm saying out there, I mean out there. When you look out there, the way it never happens inside you. You never look at the man in the mirror. You're waiting for someone else to tell you if what you did right or what you did wrong. That's what you're waiting for. And psychologically, there's a pattern to that. That is a narrative that you grow up believing that you can't trust yourself. You begin to outsource that judgment. You stop asking, what do I know within myself? And you start asking the question, what does someone else say about it? That was me. Everything evolved around everyone else but me. Family, examine yourself and see how it shows up in your life. And when that happens long enough, you lose control with your own scale. It starts with you. Justice begins the moment you step into the mindset of David, without having to be told. And I'm saying David allegorically, but I'm saying to you that the ties of the world, the Browns of the world, the Revolves. The moment that you become honest enough to face yourself, the moment when Nathan says you are the man in the mirror and you don't argue, you don't defend yourself, you recognize it, that's justice. And you're not going to get it if you don't take accountability for your actions. It's not going to show up. And that's the part that religion misses. It never makes you take accountability because you always constantly blaming it on somebody else. It trains you to look outward for judgment. It gives you a future. It gives you a future judgment day where all the deeds are written in a book, and someone else is going to weigh it on you, weigh it later. Your good outweigh your bad, and somebody's writing it in the book to judge you later. What about right now in this moment? Are you doing the things that show up with integrity? Are you doing the things that say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the right thing even when nobody is looking? And the truth of the matter is your unconscious is already recording every action, every intention, every moment. You know better. And it does this without asking permission. So the scale was never meant to live outside of you. And if you listen closely and you pay attention, you can see the patterns of how when people stop examining themselves and they replace that inner responsibility with external systems of judgment, instead of transforming themselves, we wait for someone else to declare, if it's righteous or not. Family, the parts of ourselves we refuse to confront don't disappear. I don't care how far you take it off into the woods. It's not going anywhere. Remember, we unpacked how the people had the traditions of casting their sins on the goat every year. They would put their sins on that goat and they would take it out into the desert. They had to do it every year because, they weren't looking inside themselves. So what they were casting out would come back even harder. I remember it says, when you cast out a demon, it can come back times 7. And they would have to do it again. And it had to be done over and over. They move into unconscious. And from there it begins to shape how you act, how you behave, your choices and your reactions without even realizing it. So justice never happens. The unconsciousness will keep bringing that same lesson back around to you. You'll keep getting that same experience, just a different person that'll give you the same life experience. And I'm not telling you something I heard. I'm telling you something I know. Throughout my life, I've had experience after experience, beginning with my parents to make me believe or make me think that I wasn't good enough. And then it happens over and over again. Relationship after relationship, believe the same thing. You're not good enough. That's going to reinforce. It's going to happen over and over again. Not as a punishment, but as unfinished work. Family, justice was never meant to work the way they give it to you. Justice begins in the moment you are willing to see yourself clearly, not through that shame, not through the denial, but through the truth. Because once you can stand in front of yourself without running, without explaining, without hiding, that's when the scale becomes balanced. And that's when justice actually begins. So now that we understand that justice, where it begins, the next question becomes, what does it look like and how we live? What does it look like? Because justice inside of you doesn't just stay there. It shows up in your actions and your decisions. And like I said before, in your integrity. And this is where the third principle of Ma'at comes in, that peace. Those 3, peace, justice, and righteousness. Peace creates stillness within you. Justice weighs what is true within you. But righteousness is what you do after it gets weighed. Righteousness is when your actions match what your heart already knows. So if the scale within you says something is wrong, righteousness is the courage to correct it. If the scale within you says something isn't fair, righteousness is the courage to address it. If the scale within you says something is out of balance, righteousness is the willingness to restore it. This is why peace, justice, and righteousness cannot be separated. They go together real bad. Because peace without justice becomes silence, and silence is betrayal. Justice without righteousness becomes knowledge without action. And we all know faith without work is dead. And righteousness without peace becomes reaction instead of alignment. And we know if you're not in alignment, so the questions that we have to ask ourselves tonight is just, what is justice? It's something deeper. What does justice require of me? Once I recognize it in myself, recognition is only the first step. Once you see something clearly, you should want to. You should want to go back. You shouldn't want to go back to pretending you didn't see it. For the life of me, I try to figure out my patterns of why do I want to go back to something I know that didn't work. It's hard because your body has built up this I'm gonna say algorithm, for lack of better words, algorithm of wanting the same things, even though you know that it ain't good for you. Family, this is our responsibility. This is the hero's journey and where your responsibility begins. Because until you make that unconditional thing conscious, it will direct your life, and you will start calling it faith. I didn't have a choice. He knows. That's not how it goes. In other words, once something inside you becomes visible, once you recognize your motives, your wounds, your patterns, you now carry the responsibility of what you see. And this is where I've stopped a lot, because awareness is uncomfortable. It's hard. And this is the moment where people, let me say it this way. This is the moment where a person has to confront themselves. Welcome in, family. Thank you. Not the version of you that you resent to the world, but the one that's there when no one else is around. The justice within the self means asking those hard questions. Where have I been dishonest with myself, Ty? I'm saying my name. You ask yourself, where have I been dishonest with myself? You know, the craziest thing, Dr. Simatawi says all the time, a man could never lie to a woman more than she would lie to herself. So rather than asking where have I, blame others for things I refuse to face, or where have I chosen comfort over truth, I move to find a way to blame that doesn't, look like me. And let me make that real for a moment. This showed up in my life so big and out there. I can see it now, hindsight, but we need to start seeing things when we're in it. We need to start having awareness when we're in it. Because when I was married, I attached myself to someone who was doing all the things. The signs were there, but, I wanted to win. And instead of facing what was happening, my mind started working overtime to make excuses so that I wouldn't have to tell myself the truth, but to protect the story that I had been living with about myself. Because deep inside that pattern, that was running, in me was the belief, I'm not good enough. I gotta marry. I'd rather marry than to burn. And once that belief is there, the brain will fight to protect it. I'm telling you, you put your diggers on them. So instead of asking the honest questions, what is happening inside of me? I started to blame everybody else. I started to blame him. Instead of looking like, what is it that you're doing? My mind started asking different questions. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe this is just what marriage looks like. You're supposed to forgive him 70 times 7, or else you won't be forgiven. Or what about maybe if I try harder, maybe if I love harder, maybe if I sacrifice more? And what I didn't realize at the time was that my brain was not searching for truth. It was trying to keep that old identity intact. And it was my way of my justice system trying to regulate itself. And I didn't know. Because if I had admitted what was really happening, I would have had to face something that was much bigger that I don't think I was ready. Ladies, we say we be wanting the truth. We don't be ready. I'm like, what's the name? You can't handle the truth. We start to pretend that we don't see these things. And that's when that justice becomes real. Because justice without that self is not someone punishing you. It's the moment when you can, when the scale inside you starts tipping. One side is holding the truth, and the other side is holding the story that you've been telling yourself to survive. An unbalanced scale. Let me just get this right. Unbalanced scale. And eventually those two things cannot stay balanced anymore. Something's going to get very heavy. That tension becomes heavy. That's when the scales start moving. That's when the inner judgment begins. Not judgment in the way that we were taught, but the judgment in the sense of weighing what's real against what you've been pretending not to see. And this is why justice always starts within self. We have to start looking at self. You need to start looking at self. Because before the world ever holds you accountable, your mind has already been measuring. It's already looking at the things. Your nervous system already knows. Your body already feels it. That's the scale. And it happens in stages usually. First, there's a moment of awareness. Something inside of you recognizes what just happened or what's happening, what you said or what you did. That it doesn't fully align with you. Sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes it shows up later. When things start to quiet down and you just get time to sit with yourself and you think about the things. But something inside you always knows. It always notices. Secondly, your body starts to respond. Your chest gets tight. Your stomach, drops. Your thought starts replaying in that moment. You feel restless. You can't sleep. You can't eat. You're uneasy. You're unsettled. That's your nervous system trying to process what's happening. Third, the mind begins to weigh it. You start asking yourself questions like, why did I do that? Did I handle that right? Welcome in, family. Should I have said something different? Should I say this? Or what if I say that and you start doing all the things? This is the mind trying to restore the balance that's showing up in the nervous system. And if you ignore that long enough, that weight stays. That's what people describe as guilt or a heavy heart. And interesting, the biblical text speaks about the same inner knowing. And the reason I don't get on y'all heads because I know that if we stop taking it literally and we take it and use it metaphysically, we can actually understand what it means on a deeper level. just get so wrapped up in listening to other people and not gaining understanding for ourselves. It don't say that nowhere, Ty. I done told y'all about challenging me. Why y'all do that? What shows up in me, I'm not just going to come and tell you just anything. And the craziest thing, I can even say, how do you know that it don't show up in there? Because y'all don't read it. How do you know if you're relying on the pastor to tell you what it means? Let me put a pin in it before I tell you the story. Because I can hear y'all in the background saying, Ty, I still don't believe it. It ain't in there. I got you. But my question is still the same. How would you know if you never read it for yourself? How would you know? If you only understand some of the things that come from the pulpit or the tradition or someone interpreting these things for you. Let me tell you, the other day I was on TikTok. I was doing my usual scroll through, and there was this woman on a live panel. And I got these people in my algorithm. So, I just happened to be scrolling, and this young lady came up on the panel. She joined the discussion because, they were talking about a scripture that she had never seen before. And she openly admitted, I've never seen this before. She said, I'm struggling with this because that scripture that you're giving me that came from God, it didn't sit right with me. She literally said, I just can't imagine God being cruel like that. Now listen closely. Her spirit felt something was off. Her conscience was responding. Something inside of her was already weighing it. But instead of sitting with that tension that was showing up and within her, instead of exploring what her own awareness was telling her, she said she was going to take that scripture, and she just kept asking, what is the scripture again? Can you read it again? She said she was going to take it to her pastor so he could explain it in a way that would make it make sense to her. In other words, she was trying to override what she felt internally with an explanation from outside. But this is what we do. And that right there is not justice, because justice begins with honesty. And honesty requires you to sit with, what it is that's being weighed inside of you. It requires you to say, something don't feel right with it. I need to get to the bottom and see why, and not to go to another source to do it. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take the time out to say, why is this not connecting? And why is it not feeling right to me? And Ty tells us all the time, if it don't connect, question it. You need to be asking some questions. And I'm not saying question it to somebody else. I'm saying question it yourself. Be curious and go and study and show yourself approved. Now let's get back to the story, because I don't want to go too far. I get beside myself sometimes. And I'm going to quote this. It says, their conscience also bears witness, and their thoughts sometimes accuse them, and at other times defends them. Let me read that one more time for y'all. Their conscience also bears witness. Welcome in, family. Oh, shit. Hold on. That was crazy. Their conscience always bears witness, and their thoughts sometimes accuse them, and at other times defends them. That means something inside of you is already testifying. Your own thoughts can accuse you. Your own thoughts can defend you. The weighing is happening within you Why, Ty? What? I don't get that. You think that's all? It's not. David speaks in Psalms, I think it's in Psalms. He says, when I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day. For the day and night, your hands were heavy upon me. Notice that language. Heavy, weight, pressure. That's the scale. Scale is inside the person, because before the world judges anything, your own heart has already begun weighing what you've done. And when you ignore that weighing, that's when justice gets distorted the way it was originally meant. Because true justice was never meant to be something only performed outside of you. Justice begins when you are willing to be honest with what already has been weighing within you. And you will know the unseen things from the things that are seen, including the Godhead. What lives inside you shows up in how you act. Justice begins inside in intention, conscious alignment, but it doesn't stay hidden. It appears in what you do. Makai says, he has shown you what is good, to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. Notice something about that. It doesn't describe justice as something you simply believe. It describes justice as something you live out. Something that shows up in how you move, how you treat people, how you handle power. If you get that power. And y'all's Jesus echoes the same idea when he says, you will know them by their fruits. In other words, what is within a person will eventually show up in what they produce. This is why when y'all be saying he got money and changed, or she put a spell on him and he ain't acting right, he hadn't been acting right since. The money is the root of all evil. It all has to do with you. The outside reveals what's on the inside. So if that money is and somebody shows up evil, it's because it was in them. And we all have that. We have the capability to have that in us. That's why my aunt teaches balance, because you can't. It's the intention that goes behind it. So when justice is truly present within someone, it becomes visible. You will see how fair they are. You will see how honest they are. You will see the restraint when someone has power. You will see the protection of those who are vulnerable. Those are outward signs of an inward alignment person. So when justice exists within someone, it doesn't stay abstract. It doesn't stay theoretical. It shows up in how you move. It shows up in how you treat people. And I'm going to tell y'all, and this is the honest to goodness truth. I've been around a lot of people, and I've never, and I ain't going to say never, Christian people treat people the worst. I've seen it. Y'all are just brutal. The people that I've seen treat people better are not even Christians. But they have good morals. They have good values. They have good justice systems. Because when you're honest with yourself, when you're weighing your own intentions, you become aware of the impact of your actions. That's why one of the greatest commandments was love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And people hear that and they think, I just got to be nice. No, that's not what it signifies. It's a deeper truth to that. Because if you truly understood yourself, if you examine your own heart, you become more aware of how your actions affect other people. I'm having to learn that. So justice inside the person becomes justice in your relationship. You become more careful with your words. more conscious about your choices, more aware of the weight of what you do. Because the same scale that you use within yourself is the same scale you begin using when you interact with other people. So justice is not just law. It becomes a way of living. It becomes the balance between what you know inside and how you show up outside. And that's why love and justice were never meant to be separate. Because when a person is honest within themselves, they naturally move. They move more careful. They take care of people towards, they show that same care towards everybody else. And when I hear that, that resonates with me. Why things matter more now. So justice begins within the person. Then the real evidence of what someone carries inside will eventually show up in what they do. Because a person can say anything, they can tell you anything with their mouth. They can preach, they can teach, they can quote scripture. Because action always reveals what lives within. You can tell what someone is capable of by watching their patterns. Not their words, their patterns. For example, when someone say they stand for truth, and when you go to the church house, it don't question God, that tells the same thing. When someone says, they care about people, but they only show up when there's money involved. Wink, wink. They only show up because when they're getting something out of it. When someone teaches humility, but constantly needs praise and recognition, I gotta always be the star of the show. That tells you something. You can't hide it. If someone is disconnected from their own internal scale, you can't hide that. So what does that look like in real life, Ty? It looks like leaders who speak about compassion, but treat people harshly behind the scenes. Y'all get mad at Drewski guys how he carrying on, how he showing that what y'all look like. It can look like preaching about honesty while hiding those financial decisions. Got your own people on the board. It can look like teaching accountability but refusing to take responsibility when you are wrong. None of those require a courtroom for you to see that. Welcome in, family. You can absorb it because behavior is a reflection of what someone else has justified within themselves. And this is why, that internal scale matters. Because if someone learns to silence that voice within, they can convince themselves that almost anything is acceptable. I convinced myself that a lot of things that I just knew was wrong, it's okay. Pray your way through it is what I used to tell myself. It's okay that he treats you bad, because one day, it used to say, a woman can pray for her husband and she can make him turn from his ways. And I leaned on that. When I say lean on it, I leaned on it hard. I put my toes, my fingers, I leaned on it. But the truth is simple. People eventually show you who they are. There's a saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Not by what they say, but what they repeatedly do. Because action reveals alignment. And that's why justice must begin within, the person first. Welcome in, family. Because once someone loses connection to that internal way, nothing outside of them will keep them aligned. You can give them, you give them religion, not a rule, a system, nothing. Now tonight, family, this conversation was about justice and accountability. I had to add accountability in that. It's not about the way we were taught. Don't judge, lest ye be judged. It's not that. Not in the way they gave it to us. It made it sound like, we should never examine anything, never question behavior, never recognize wrongdoing. And that was never the point. The deeper meaning is, I cannot judge your heart. I can't. Nobody else could judge your heart because I can't see your intentions. Only you can see that. Only you know that. And what people call God is dead when they say only God can judge you. That narrative, we're throwing that in the trash in 2026. Welcome in, family. We're throwing it away. And what they call God, knowing the heart, is not something floating somewhere on the outside of you. It's awareness within you. That's already, that's what you already know the truth to be by your intentions. That's the scale. And I'm not standing here pretending I have everything together. I don't show up that way. None of us do. Show me one that do. I don't pretend that. But transformation requires that honesty that Ty stands in, that she gets on here and she shares transparency with you. And when things don't connect, and when she got it wrong, or when she just didn't get it, when the light bulb goes on, I stand in that truth and I'm honest about it. Because if you want to become something new, they say is all things old have to pass away. And it's not talking about that the way they give it to you. It's not talking about that. You first have to recognize where you were out of alignment. You have to see that. And the way they give you this one-sided things, it's impossible for you to see it because they don't give you both sides. And that justice that I'm talking about tonight is not punishment. Justice is correction. Justice is returning to balance. Justice is aligning your actions with your nature. According to my aunt, the nature is simple. And I'm going to say it, and I'm going to keep saying peace, justice, and righteousness. I'm going to come and I'm going to hold myself accountable for showing up in the peace, justice, and righteousness. People can change. I know we say we have the narrative, you can't teach old dogs. What do they say? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. But what if you rewire? What if you tap into your nature? And I know you can because I've seen it. And if I'm being honest, I've witnessed it in my own life. I've made some drastic changes in my own life. But it doesn't come because somebody forces you to. It doesn't come because someone shames you. It doesn't come because someone punishes you. Because, in religion, I've been shamed and it didn't do any good. I'm just coming to the awareness that I want to do better for me, not for the world. That's justice. And it doesn't come because I don't say that. Real change begins the moment something inside of you recognizes the truth. And I've had many years now of a lot of truth being demonstrated, and it's been hard, it's been challenging. And that's what happened to David. He thought he had covered everything up. No courtroom, no accusation, no public judgment. Everything looked settled on the outside. But when the prophet Nathan told him that the story of the rich man, taking, the poor man's lamb, David felt that immediately. Something inside of him recognized truth. And when Nathan says, "You're the man," David didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He simply said, "I've sinned. I hold myself accountable for this. And that's what Ty is saying tonight. I'm holding myself accountable that I didn't make a lot of right decisions. But I ain't blaming nobody else but me. All of that was me because that's what I was attracting to me. That's the justice system saying, I did not do these things. I had the wrong idea. My intentions were good, but I have sinned and I hold myself accountable. I can't blame no devil. I don't have a devil to blame. I can't blame nobody. I don't have nobody to blame. I can't blame my sister, my mama. That's because it's me. It's me, oh Lord. That's the moment right there. Was the scale of justice and the weighing of the heart, not on the outside, but on the inside. And that's why justice is not something that begins in a courtroom, and I'm going to keep saying that. So that he's a lawyer in the courtroom, that y'all be preaching Sunday after Sunday, year after year, throw it in the trash. Don't preach it on Easter Sunday. Because you wouldn't be here if we wouldn't be where we are if we reinforce the principles of Ma'at. Justice begins the moment you choose integrity over convenience. When you are willing to face what is true within yourself, you wouldn't have gotten to that place. I wouldn't have gotten to that place if I really had awareness. Because before the world holds you accountable, your own heart already has. And that's where justice truly begins, not waiting for a judgment, not waiting for a punishment, because we know in the system of white supremacy, they don't have it in them. They don't. But when you're on your own heart against what you know is right, because long before the world calls something just, your own heart has already measured it. I'm going to get out of here, family. I know I made good time. I did under 2 tonight. But I have a few things to say before I get out of here. Welcome in. I'm going to say a few things before I go. There's a warning that says, be careful when you spend your life fighting monsters. Because if you stare in the darkness long enough, you can slowly become that very thing that you're trying to destroy. And that matters because the real battle was never on the outside of us. True awakening doesn't happen by pretending everything is light, that you don't have a shadow side. It happens the moment we are honest enough to face the parts of ourselves we would rather avoid. Because the scale doesn't appear when everything is perfect. It don't. The scale appears the moment we are honest with ourselves. Right or wrong. And every generation eventually arrives at the same moment, a moment where we must decide, will we live aligned with what we know within, or will we continue repeating what we were handed without ever examining it? And I'm not talking about just taking somebody's word for it. I'm talking about truly examining and sitting with what it says and how it resonates with you. Because in the end, that decision is the real weighing of the heart, aka justice. So tonight, we came to the understanding of something important. Justice is not when someone else decides what is right about you. It's when you become honest enough to weigh yourself. And once you begin to do that, once you begin to recognize what's right within you, something else has to happen next. Because awareness alone is not enough. There has to be movement, action, and initiative. And that's where we're going next. Because the next question becomes, once you know what's right, what are you going to do about it? So next time when we come together, we're going to unpack initiative, how it shows up in our lives, why sometimes it doesn't, and what it actually takes to move from awareness into action. That's going to be it for me, family, tonight. I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to say, Hotep.